you kind of stumbled upon maybe my favorite topic. Like I really do find this very
Really?
interesting. Yeah, men's body weight preferences and women's body weight modification behavior. One of the most interesting things in the mating and beautification literature.
Tell us
So,
more.
first, men's body weight preferences vary dramatically across cultures. There are cultures such as, uh, some parts of the South African Zulu where women's BMIs of up to 38, right? Very heavy,
Whoa.
right? That's close to that's close to morbid obesity from a technical perspective, which starts at about 40, and it's already very obese. Those body weights are preferred among
And
those
is there a
groups. Up
reason
to
for
that,
them?
yeah, and I'll speak about that in a second because I want to paint the variation as well. In somewhere like urban Japan, on the contrary, or Korea, you might see body weights as low as like underweight, BMIs as low as 18, da 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 da. And look, BMI isn't a great metric for health,
Right.
and there's going to be variation as to how appropriate it is for one person, right? Like my BMI would technically be overweight on a BMI scale, but
What?
yeah, but I'm not. I'm genuinely just a little dense, right? That's just, but very slightly, right? And
Huh.
that's a quite a common experience. It's like the BMI says I'm overweight, but I'm actually healthy,
Yeah.
or the BMI says that I'm normal weight, but I can see that I'm actually quite unhealthy, right?
Right.
So it's not a great measure for health, but it is a great measure for size,
Mm.
right? It's a measurement of how big you are. It's
Right.
kilograms per meter squared. So it's a measure of how big
Hmm.
you are. So men's preferences vary dramatically. And the variation seems to be partially explained by media and westernization, but it's also explicable by socioeconomic status, access to resources. There are
Oh.
some very funny studies which, have replicated and have been done in different ways that show that men who are acutely hungrier prefer larger women. I'm serious. And there are also more cultural studies that show that men in different groups by socioeconomic status tend to vary in such a way that wealthier men and men in wealthier environments prefer women of lighter body weights, whereas men in poorer or relatively poorer men tend to prefer women of heavier body weights. And
Interesting.
so from an evolutionary perspective, you might wonder, why would this be the case? And there's also some other fun evidence for it. I mean, we could talk all day about this. There's some evidence that when during times of economic scarcity, Playboy centerfold models get heavier in the States,
Oh.
and during
Well,
times of economic abundance, they get lighter. And then there's also some, if you've seen the Venus figurines, those Paleolithic carvings of
yeah.
very heavy women,
Hmm.
right? Very heavy relative to current standards.
Right.
This would be a realistic depiction of obesity.
Right.
Those women, carvings of those women, which some people think are icons of beauty
Yeah.
for that time, those become more common during, I believe it was periods of glacial stress. That environment was harsher, and so the men had a stronger preference for larger women. And the thought is that in a time of abundance, fat might signal negative things, right?
Hmm.
Either from a status perspective or even just from a health perspective, right? But during times of scarcity, well, then fat is a signal of stored calories,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if you're hungry acutely or you're socioeconomically stressed, it's like, I'm in resource deprivation. Who has resources? This lady who's larger.
Wow.
So we see variation there. And then on the other side, we also see variation in what women do. So in the UK or in the US or in Korea or Japan or any of these kind of OECD wealthier nations, we generally see that women try to lose weight
Right.
to improve their physical
Uh,
appearance. Certainly in America, the UK,
yeah.
Australia, these
People are obsessed with losing weight.
losing weight.
Yeah.
But that's not a cultural universal, right? So there are some groups, such as among the Efik of southeastern Nigeria, where women actually try to gain weight partially in order to appear more attractive, or they're considered more attractive. So for months before marriage, they'll enter a fattening room where
Wow.
they restrict movement and increase calories in order to be heavier for the wedding. And then and it's considered very beautiful, right? So
Wow.
there's
So
tremendous variation
interesting.
here. Yeah.
And here in
Yeah.
America, like LA especially, people go into like strict diet, go to
Yeah.
berries
Fast
every day
dieting.
to like
Yeah.
lose weight for their
Yeah.
wedding.
Do everything possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on Ozempic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get liposuction.
Yeah.
I mean, the weight loss and fat loss efforts of Westerners are extreme.
is there a reason why everyone wants to be so skinny?
Well, it's a very wealthy country.
So the correlation of like wealth and weight.
Well, this is, now you're getting into the kind of deep theoretical underpinning, which is the insurance hypothesis, which essentially posits that in an environment where food is scarce, fat is a signal of abundance and capability. And in an environment where food is abundant, fat does not signal those things. And so it becomes less desired. And this is actually something that we should just note. Women tend to overshoot men's preferences in terms of dieting and weight loss. So women tend to want to have less fat and want to have lower body weights than men prefer. So I'm not saying that Australian and American and British men don't prefer lighter women. They do. It's just that women in those countries tend to think
Way skinnier
Yeah,
than what it actually
exactly,
is.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's-
and it's
it's-
just women over women. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's kind of like how men look at their biceps,
I
right?
know,
Women
it is
are like
similar.
who's losing more weight,
Yeah.
who's skinnier
Yeah.
this summer.